Many of you will be doing projects which involve recruiting and testing human participants in some way. So you will need to complete this form to accompany the standard ethics form. It's relatively simple. Let's just go through the fields that you need to complete. Version number, you could stick in a version number 1 here if it's your first attempt. The actual ethics application will be assigned a number by the committee. Okay, so you put in your name, the title of the study. This should match up with the title on the main ethics form. Look at what types of participants you will be recruiting. Note that if none apply to your study, you leave this blank. It's very unlikely that you will be recruiting NHS patients. Some of you may be dealing with under 18s. Look at the other titles and think about those. Communication disabilities is possible, learning disabilities is possible as a criterion for your study, and some of the other ones may be applicable to your study. Participants in an institutional context, e.g. school, healthcare or custodial sentences, take that to mean that your participants are being tested as members of a school, a university or something. So that would be a study relevant to them being, say, students or whatever. If you are just recruiting students as a way of convenient sampling because they are there, you don't need to tick that box. It's not that you are studying students in particular. So consider each of these carefully. You may be not actually ticking any of those boxes. Here you need to describe your recruitment process. How are you going to be recruiting your participants? Who are they? What are the main inclusion or exclusion criteria? How many are you planning to recruit? How will they be? Well, it says identified here. How will you recruit them? Will you be using posters, emails, moderator messages, online from a database, and so on? Okay. Do you need approval to access participants for your research? If you're looking at SLTs, do you need approval from a clinical manager, for example? If you're looking at people working in a charity, do you need approval for that, and so on? We often have people collecting data from, say, speech and language therapists, but the people can be recruited online via social media and they don't need to go through a manager. And how do participants make contact with the researcher? Okay. This is all about your information sheet. How will participants be informed about the research prior to taking part? What information will they be provided with? How and when will it be provided to them? How much time do they have to decide? If they want to make contact with you, if they need to make contact with you, how will that be done? So think about all those issues. Taking consent, describe the strategy for gaining consent from participants. Who will take the consent? If you're doing an online survey, it may be as simple as them ticking a checkbox to say they consent to doing the study, having read the information page. Assent is about dealing with children under the age of 16, so you need to look into that in more detail if you have a study involving children under 16. Okay. Confidentiality and anonymity, how will these be managed? What is your approach to maintaining confidentiality of data given by participants? Will anonymity be assured for participants, and how? You'll have considered that to some extent in the main application form, but you need to go into a little bit more detail here. Again, read the guidelines carefully for these. But we've got the anonymized, pseudo-anonymized, fully identifiable categories here as on the previous form. And how long the data will be kept for. We've mentioned that as well when talking about the previous form. Who is the custodian of the data collected? This will be your supervisor, and the supervisor, are responsible for storing and ensuring destruction of the data. And finally, what risks are there to participants? What potential risks are there to participants? There are unlikely to be physical risks in your cases. There may be things which participants might find distressing. It's possible, but don't exaggerate. Okay. And if there is potential for distress, what is in place to manage that? Will the research involve any level of deception? You may say no, but in fact in some cases we do experiments where we don't want to tell the participants in advance what the experiment is about, because that may affect how they respond. So what we do in these cases is we tell them afterwards that we were really asking for them to, we were really wanting to collect data, say, on their disfluencies, but if you tell people in advance that we're looking at disfluencies, they will be more careful about their speech. So there's a good reason there to deceive them at the very beginning. So in that case, you would explain the rationale and explain the approach, and explain that they will be informed of the real reason for the study after they've provided the data. Okay. Check your PVG guidance in case you need a criminal record check for the proposed research. I think as students you will all have PVG anyway. And that is the end of that form. Discuss this again with your supervisor if there are any questions, and then with a member of the divisional research panel if that's not resolved by your supervisor. Okay.